In this video, I'm going to run you through exactly how I've built more muscle in the last 10 months than I have done in the 4 years before that, without hopping on a cycle, dropping down from 6 training days per week to 4 days per week, and while lifting less weight than I was before and doing less sets. And I'm doing this to show you how you're going to be able to do the same thing over the next 10 months as well. So who is this not for? This is really important that we cover this first, okay? Just because I want you to know if this video is not for you, because what I'm talking about in here won't work for you if you fall under these categories. So if you're a complete newbie lifter that's just getting into the gym, this isn't for you. I can point you elsewhere, but this isn't the right video for you right now. If you're somebody that just wants to build a little bit of muscle and you don't want to get too big, this isn't for you either. This is for maximizing your growth. This is for growing as much muscle as you possibly can and getting jacked. This isn't about just looking a little bit better for the beach next summer. This is about putting on as much lean tissue as you can and getting as jacked as you can. This is not for guys who see the gym as a chore and don't like going. This isn't for you. This is for the guys that love it. This isn't for strength athletes either that just want to get stronger. This is all about getting bigger. And this isn't for guys who like winging it and hate structure and routine as well. Complete opposite of that. Now, who is this for? The opposite side, okay? So this is for the guys who want to pack on as much muscle as possible in their lives and cut down to look ripped as fuck. This is for the guys who don't want to live their lives carrying plastic Tupperwares around in their backpack at all times as well. That's not what we do here. This is also not for, this is for guys who never miss gym sessions. So if you're somebody that's turning up to the gym relentlessly week in, week out, but you feel like you're not reaping all of the benefits that you could be from the work you're putting in, this video is for you. If you also feel like you need a super clear plan with the gym and your nutrition to just go and rinse, you know that you're an executor, you know that you're somebody that once you're given it, fuck me, you can fly. This is it. This is what I'm going to give you today. And this is also for guys that have been training for 1 to 3 years consistently, or even more than 3 years, but not grown as much muscle as they know they could have, they know they should have, and they wanted to, right? This is for you guys, the ones that are a good few years into their lifting journey and feeling like they should be growing quicker than they are right now. This is for guys who see the gym as a game and it's one of the best parts of their day, like me. And this is also for data-driven motherfuckers who love structure, routine, and seeing their numbers go up. That is what this is for, okay? So if you tick these boxes, here is the video for you. I want to run you through my backstory just quickly, just so you can have this isn't about me, so I don't want to run you through my childhood, everything, but I do want to give you a bit of backstory on my lifting journey, and most importantly, my last year in the gym, because this is where the most magic has happened on my journey. But I always started off on the naturally skinnier side. I got chosen to play rugby for North Wales. In my first season, I barely got picked. In second season, I was too small to play, so I got dropped. Absolutely sent me down a war path to build as much muscle as I possibly could. And I went through years and years. In my first 2 years of lifting from here to here, I barely put on any muscle. I really struggled to gain muscle. I was training 6 days a week, but just couldn't figure it out. From there, I actually went into a bulking phase and gained way too much fat, but didn't build muscle. And then finally, this is what we're here to talk about. And this isn't in the last year, but in this last year of growth, I am growing quicker right now than I did during my newbie gains phase. So you know how everyone tells you about this magic newbie gains phase when you first get into the gym, and that's when you're going to grow the quickest? I'm growing quicker now than I was back then, using the techniques that I want to teach you today. So that's why this last year is most important. Just look at this. That's in 4 months. What I've done to my back using these techniques, and that is in 10 months what I've done to my legs. And I just want to make it clear, that is 4 years of training 6 days per week without missing a gym session. 5 days a week, because I trained for 6 days initially, then 5 days, and I've moved down to 5 days. But I didn't miss a single gym session, trained for 4 years consistently. That's when my legs got to, and then in 10 months I've done this. And that's just in 4 months, again, with the same thing there. So what I'm teaching you here is actually quite a recent story for me. And it's recent. It's something that I've learned in this last year, and I'm teaching my clients now. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. I've learned these techniques over the last year. Now I'm giving them out to all my clients, and I'm teaching other guys these techniques, and the growth that I'm seeing is quicker than I've ever seen before. So Jordan, literally his weakest muscle group is lats are growing, chest, Craig, his chest and lats, Owen's triceps. You can see here, you can see the transformations. But now we've helped over 100 guys transform and built over 300 kilos collectively. But that isn't what I want to emphasize from here. What I want to emphasize is the speed at which it's happening, right? The speed at which it's happening, okay? You can see some of the testimonials here. I'm not going to read them all through, but just like I'm feeling really good physically at the moment, constantly looking in the mirror in my flat. Is body morphia a phrase? And he's also got people around him noticing week by week he's getting bigger. You can read that. So, one of his mates has called him Jack. This pump didn't even feel normal, never felt or looked so good in my life. Confidence I'm gaining is crazy. But again, it's the speed that I want to show you here, right? Week in, week out, improvements. Never felt so huge. Compliments keep coming in. This is what I want to emphasize to you guys. And the main problem that I think there is for guys in the situation that we're in at the moment is bad bulking advice is rife on social media right now, right? There's either two extremes, and these are the only two that you can kind of pick from. There's either gain a load of unnecessary body fat and go through a really quick bulking phase, go into a surplus, gain a load of body fat, gain a load of weight, have to cut it off again and waste a load of time, barely building any muscle, left with a sour taste in your mouth as to how bulking actually works, and now you're worried about going back into a bulk in case you just gain the body fat back again. Or the other end of the spectrum, which is stay exactly the same weight and don't bother gaining weight at all. Neither one of these options optimizes your gains. And the bad bulking advice is rife right now, and it's confusing so many guys. Another problem is people are stuck in this cycle of just doing more and more sets to build muscle, just doing more and more work, more exercises, more sets, more workouts, just in this fixation of I need to do more to build more muscle. And this puts you on a hamster wheel of, I've got to do more if I want to grow more. And it just leads to your training quality getting worse and worse and worse every single week, and you getting less growth for every set that you're putting in. And there's also advice that's being given out from people who are on steroids, who are enhanced, that could literally do whatever they wanted in the gym every week and grow muscle. But that doesn't apply for us naturals. It doesn't apply for us guys. And when we try and copy that advice, it just won't apply to us in our situation. And two other issues that I think are confusing people as well is progressive overload is being spouted all over the place. You just need to lift heavier, lift more weight, get more reps. But that helps you increase your lifts, helps you get stronger, helps you add weight to your lifts, get more reps, but it doesn't necessarily always make you bigger. And that's a distinction that people haven't quite made. And finally, just lifting heavier works for some of your muscle groups, but left your stubborn ones looking exactly the same. It's like you're using a training program that prioritizes all your muscle groups the same, yet some of them are blowing up, your chest is growing every single week, your back is still weak as fuck, and you can't figure out why. These are just some of the problems that I've seen at the moment. And the biggest lie of all that I would say is confusing people is what I mentioned a second ago. You just need to progressively overload, bro. This is what's getting spouted from people who are enhanced. This is getting spouted from people who have elite genetics and have never had to figure out muscle growth. It just happened to them naturally, and it leaves us in a spot where we don't have anywhere to turn. We just follow this advice for years. We get stronger and stronger, but we're still not growing at the pace we need to, right? And it's because progressive overload won't do shit if you aren't actually delivering stimulus to your muscles. And that's one of the main key shifts that I want to run through with you today. So the old way that you can see here is, and this is the way that a lot of people are stuck in right now, gaining more fat than muscle in your bulking phases and just wasting months gaining fat that you have to then cut back off again to get back into your next bulking phase, and you're just flip-flopping from phase to phase. That's the second one, flip-flopping from bulking to cutting, never actually building momentum in one or the other to put on a significant amount of muscle. You're just flip-flopping and never actually having that momentum. Finally, building programs just based off the equipment you've got access to without considering the resistance profiles of the exercises, which gets more and more important the more you want to maximize your growth and bring up your stubborn muscle groups as well. And also increasing volumes when you're gaining slow. That's another old way of doing things. Let's just throw more shit at the wall and see what sticks. Let's just do more. Do more. Let's see what happens by doing more. That's going to work. Do more. And it leaves you on this hamster wheel. Also adding reps and weight and hoping that leads to growth. Just lift heavier. Just do some more. And just like throwing shit at the wall again and seeing if that works. And finally, planning 8-week cutting phases, but ending up wasting 4 months on it. So planning a quick 6 to 8 week cut, going, yeah, let's do that. But it doesn't go to plan. You waste weeks with the body weight not dropping, and then it extends out, and again, it kills your gaining momentum. That is the old way of doing things. The new way of doing things that I'm going to run you through today is gaining mostly muscle, not fat, in compound gaining phases, which is the happy middle ground in between bulking phases that put on way too much fat way too quickly, and main gaining that does absolutely fuck all for you. Secondly, protecting your massing momentum at all costs, understanding that the momentum matters so much and actually protecting this. I'm going to run through all these things, by the way. Thirdly, prioritizing training your muscles in the lengthened position to maximize growth. So many people are just leaving so much growth on, like, gains on the table by not taking advantage of this. Again, instead of increasing volume or doing more work if your gains slow down, we improve your execution if your gains slow down, because that's what's really missing. putting stimulus first ahead of just blind progression, so that you're not just getting stronger, you're actually building more muscle. So putting stimulus first and then ramping your numbers up. And finally, during cutting phases, locking the fuck in for 6 to 10 weeks and dropping 10% body fat. This is the new way of doing things. And that encompassed into one kind of method is the compound gains blueprint, which is what I'm going to run you through today. But here are some of our core values. Number one, we have stimulus. Right, I'm going to quantify these for you in a second, but we have stimulus, challenge, ownership, relentless, and efficiency. And these together make up the compound gains blueprint. So if I was to kind of quantify what these mean with an outcome, I would say stimulus, we prioritize stimulus for the target muscle over the load that you're using. Challenge, we believe that unsustainable phases lead to growth. So many people believe that fat loss has to be sustainable, everything has to be sustainable. Fuck that. You grow when you are challenged, okay? Ownership, never pass the blame. We don't just make you feel better by saying, oh, it's not your fault, don't worry, you had a busy week. Again, you grow when you're challenged, and you grow when you take ownership over your actions. So that's another key belief of ours. Relentless as well. You can't lose if you never stop. You can have a bad day, you can have a bad week, but if you never stop and you know that you are relentless deep down, you'll get there. And finally, efficiency. We have a zero junk volume policy. So many people waste years in the gym doing junk volume. Junk volume that does not move the needle. Volume that does not cause any growth. Volume that just wastes your time, and you shouldn't even be in there doing it because it's just causing fatigue, making you feel like you've done something, you're getting a bit of a sweat on, but you're not building any muscle. That is my idea of hell. I want every single time I touch a dumbbell to cause growth, and that's why efficiency is one of our core values as well. And when you encompass the compound gains blueprint and somebody comes into it and goes through our process, there's 4 kind of phases that they go through. They go through stretch, build, stimulate, and reveal. And the stretch phase is where we implement stretch loaded training into your training. The build phase is where we go into a compound gaining phase and maximize your muscle growth by compounding little bits of muscle tissue every single week, not gaining too much fat, but also not just staying still and not moving your body weight at all. Then stimulate, so moving towards the end of a mesocycle, ramping your intensity up and really scraping for the most stimulus that you can possibly get out of your training to cause the most growth, and then rapid revealing phases. So you can see here with our mechanisms that we use. So stretch loaded training, this is to deliver new levels of tension to your muscle, because so many guys are just leaving growth on the table right now by not taking advantage of stretch loaded training, not training their muscles when they are the most lengthened. And not only just to bring up your stubborn muscle groups, but to make your strong muscle groups fucking explode. Then you've got compound gaining, which is a perfect growth phase to capture all of the gains possible. And then a stimulus first approach to your training to eliminate junk volume from every single rep. And then finally, rapid revealing phases to drop 10% body fat quickly and reveal the gains that you have made. And then we repeat the cycle again, where you then optimize stretch loaded training again. You go into your next compound gaining phase. You prioritize stimulus first towards the end of a mesocycle, and then you drop body fat again. And this is the cycle that gets us insane results. But yeah, I want to break these down step by step for you. So let's go through stretch loaded training first, because this is the first stage of the compound gains blueprint, and it's the first thing that we implement into your training to get the most out. So it's one training approach that prioritizes length and bias movements to maximize the tension on the target muscle and cause more growth. And it will take you from inching along in the gym, seeing a little bit of growth, maybe a little bit of a difference after month to month, to seeing new muscle growth on a weekly fucking basis. The way that I learned this is I spent 4 years adding more and more weight to a hack squat that I'd bought and put up in my attic at home. And I'd heard of somebody that if I get this hack squat up to 160 kilos and I do it for, which was 2 times my body weight, by the way, so 2 times my body weight for 10 reps, I'll have big legs. And so every single week I added another plate to this machine. And I just thought, right, I'm doing full range of motion reps. I'm doing amazing form. I'm slowing down the eccentric. I'm doing everything right. When I get 160 kilos for 10 reps, I'm gonna have huge legs. It took me 6 months to build up to 160 kilos. I went from 100, 110, 120, and the reps were getting harder and harder. I got to 160. I looked down at my legs, and I had to pull off these BFR blood flow restriction bands. I have to peel back the knee wraps because my knees were crying, but my quads literally felt nothing. And I looked at my quads and went, they've barely fucking grown. They have barely fucking grown. So this was when I first started training, and this was 4 years in. That's 4 years of leg growth right there. And it's pretty underwhelming, right? Then I transitioned a year ago to stretch loaded training and added 7 centimeters in 10 months, and they're still growing now. This photo was taken 4 months ago, so they're even bigger than this now. And I want to make the example of my quads because this is a stubborn muscle group for me. This is one that didn't grow easily, but in 10 months, I've been able to add 7 centimeters, which is like revolutionary on my physique. And I've done that with using less sets in the gym, less overall volume, less gym sessions weekly, less weight, and I've got 0 joint pain. And so yeah, let me explain how I kind of came across stretch loaded training and the problem it addresses. So most coaches throw training programs together blindly, and I've been a victim of this. I've done this myself, right? It's how I got into training, and it's what I did initially. Throw training programs together based solely off the equipment you've got access to. You know, what gym do you have? What machines do you have? Let's just pick that, use this. Let's just put that into a program and build this, without considering the resistance profile of those exercises, or your anatomy. So actually looking at your physique and going, right, we need to think about how to get this muscle group a little bit bigger. This one needs to grow more. We need to, you've got a rib cage that's a little bit wider. This will suit you better, without considering that. And when gains eventually slow down, because they will, you'll build a new training program, you'll follow it for a few weeks, it'll be great. You'll see gains, you'll get amazing pumps, you'll get sore, and then it'll start to slow down. The only way that they know how to fix it is they'll just tell you to lift more weight or do more sets. Okay? The problem with that is that you are leaving gains on the table. Muscles fail from short to long, and if you're constantly just trying to lift more, do more sets, train harder, you are missing out on a hell of a lot of growth. You're missing out on a hell of a lot of growth. If you're only doing full range of motion reps, you're not biasing the stretch portion of the lift in some way or another, you're missing out on a lot of growth for that muscle group. And it could be the difference in between it visibly growing weekly or kind of changing over 6 months. That is the difference we're talking about here, okay? It's like throwing shit at a wall and just seeing what sticks. Sometimes something will stick and that muscle group will start growing a bit. Fantastic. Most of the time it doesn't, right? Some of your muscle groups will grow ridiculously. Like some of the shit will stick, as I said. Your stubborn muscle groups definitely won't. And not only that, if you think about this, your strong muscle groups that could be exploding on a weekly basis will be held back as well. They won't be growing as quickly as they should be. And the reality is that's even a bigger problem. Just pulling out a generic training program like this is an even bigger problem, because over the long term, your growth will slow down and you will plateau. And the only place that you can go, the only way that you can try and progress and speed growth back up is add more. Add more shoddy volume, right? More sets, more load, more reps, because you're scraping at the end of every single set. You're going, I can kind of feel that stretch. Yeah, that's it. And it's gone again. And you're just having to get to more of those shoddy reps, and you're trying to do more to get more of those. And that leaves you on this hamster wheel that I spoke about earlier. So week after week, you'll end up barely feeling your muscles working. You'll never really get sore the next day. You'll feel like, what the fuck, is this even doing anything? Like you'll finish a gym session, you walk out, sit in your car and go, do I need to go back in and do more? Did I do enough? Is that working? This is how it'll leave you feeling. And it feels like you're training relentlessly week after week, but not reaping the benefits. This is what I'm talking about here. You know deep down you could be growing so much faster than you are. And this is what happens at this point. Guys start questioning their genetics. I wonder if it's just my genetics that are really bad. I don't know, maybe I've just got these insertions. Maybe it's my genetic, maybe this is just how quickly I can grow muscle. That's bullshit, okay? And this is the difference. This is the difference in between what we do versus other coaches. They tell you just to do more sets to grow more muscle. We show you how to grow more muscle from every single set you're doing, okay? And this is the difference in between the generic program versus stretch loaded training. So they don't consider the resistance profiles of exercises. They just throw them together and say, go and do this. For the first few weeks, it's absolutely fantastic. By week 4, it's stale. By week 5, you don't feel like anything's moving. By week 6, your gains have completely slowed down. By week 7, nothing's really happening, right? They put together a list of exercises and hope they work. They increase your volume when your gains slow down. So they just try and throw more shit at the wall when things slow down. And through this type of training, you will deliver a decent amount of tension to your muscles. A decent amount. You'll feel some exercises really well, others not so much. Some are like, I'm not understand that at all. You're delivering a decent amount of tension to your muscles, and you will be adding more sets to build more muscle. And you'll probably be training 5-6 days a week. I've even seen 7-day programs. and still look the same after 6 months, right? You're just not seeing visible progress on a yearly basis, on a monthly basis, but on a yearly basis, it's like, fuck, I could have done better. That's how you'll be feeling following a generic training program. Now, so when it comes to stretch loaded training, we approach things slightly differently. We strategically program resistance profiles. We consider the resistance profiles of the machines in your gym, of the exercises that we're going to program for you, and also how we can adjust those exercises to adjust the resistance profiles as well, to make sure that we are prioritizing training your muscles in that lengthened position and getting the most stretch possible to cause the most growth, to maximize your growth. And when we say strategically program resistance profiles, this isn't just everything is super stretch based, it's strategically programming them. So we may have a super shortened biased exercise to pump your biceps full of blood before we move to a lengthened biased exercise, which really stretches them out. But we are strategically thinking about this. It's like we're throwing darts at an accurate dartboard instead of just throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks. We are carefully choosing what we want to aim at. We are carefully choosing what exercises we want you to do. We know what we're aiming for, and we are targeting there. It's strategically programmed. And also, if your gain's slow, and that's an if, then we work to improve your execution. We don't just throw more volume at it. We don't just try and go, do more work, train harder. We want to actually solve the problem, because if you are stuck on this hamster wheel of just trying to add more and more volume, it's always going to end up with you just in this trap of trying to do more to grow more, when actually doing better is what's going to actually grow more. And instead of delivering a decent amount of tension to your muscles, we aim to deliver the most tension possible to that target muscle, because that is what's going to take you from inching along, kind of seeing growth, to fucking exploding in 4 months, okay? We aim to build more muscles from every set that we do. That's our number one priority. Before we add sets, we may do that, but before we add sets, our priority is to make sure every single time you touch a machine, you are getting the maximum growth you possibly can out of that before we do more work. Because if your efficiency is the highest, then adding more workload is definitely going to cause more growth. But if you're not hitting the mark right now, adding more growth won't always necessarily lead to more growth. Adding more volume won't always lead to more growth, right? So we want to make sure that you're throwing accurate darts before we actually give you the dartboard, before we give you more darts, we want to improve your aim, right? And we usually get you to train anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week, and you'll get accused of being on something because you're growing so quickly compared to how you were before, right? So it doesn't have to be 6 days a week in the gym with 2-hour sessions. Literally 4 days a week is usually more than enough, because of the amount of tension you're delivering now. You'll need that time to recover. So that's the main difference in between generic training programs and stretch loaded training programs. And as I said, this is what I've learned in the last year. I've shared this knowledge with my clients, and the results have been utterly disgusting. Okay, so the outcome is you're going to grow more muscle in the next 4 months than the last year. You'll maximize your growth in 4 sessions a week and save 6 hours in the gym. You'll cause more growth from every single set that you do on a weekly basis, and you'll watch even your most stubborn muscle groups start growing, and your strong ones, instead of just like growing, they will explode by taking advantage of this method. You can see some of the results here. So genuinely, looking at myself, I feel like I've made more progress in the last 4 months than most people don't even see in a year's worth of training. So again, it's that speed of the results, okay? You can see here, Nick did first workout tonight. And honestly, I've never felt a pump like it. I was targeting every muscle how I wanted to, feeling the burn exactly where I should. After 20 years of lifting, Nick says here, he then applied these methods, and he literally felt like he was getting more out of his workouts now than he had ever before. Sean said he'd been training wrong. He'd trained a measly 2 days with these methods. The soreness reminds him of when he first started. And keep in mind, I've been probably training consistently for a year straight, and each workout took longer than the ones he's doing now. So 100% saving time and junk volume there. And so that's stretch loaded training. And it's all about the efficiency of your training, making sure that every single time you throw a dart, you do a set, you do a rep, it hits the mark, and we're getting the most growth out of it. Secondly, we've got compound gaining phases, which is the happy middle ground that I mentioned in between bulking way too fast and getting too fat, and main gaining and getting nowhere. So it's one massing phase built to last as long as possible on a minimal surplus. We protect your massing momentum so that you can collect weekly compound gains, and just like almost depositing a penny into the muscle box every single week. keep on stacking this tissue over months and months and months, even years, and look like a completely different person by the time we reveal underneath. The biggest differentiator here that you need to take into account is this: one massing phase. One. We only need one. Okay, this is how I learned this. So in my first 2 years of lifting, I was stuck at 72 kilos, right? I was stuck at 72 kilos. And then I finally figured out how to gain weight. I finally figured out how to gain weight after 2 years of lifting, stuck at 72 kilos. I was like, right, I'm desperate to build muscle, desperate to gain weight. And I went into a bulking phase where I was gaining weight way too quickly. I gained 22 kilos in 12 months. I thought I was going to look like this shit when I cut down. I thought I was going to look ripped. I thought I was going to have so much muscle and I was going to figure this whole thing out and I was going to look amazing. I cut back down. I honestly hadn't put on that much muscle. And I realized that I'd gained mostly fat during this phase, not muscle. And that frustrated the shit out of me. That really annoyed me because that wasted 12 months of my time and I didn't have the growth to show for it, right? Since that point, I've only ran compound gaining phases. And I'm going to run you through how they work in a second. But the biggest difference here, or the biggest outcome difference, is now every single time I cut back down and reveal the growth that I've made, I look like a completely different person because I've grown so much muscle, so much more muscle. Look at the difference. I know the lighting is better and obviously I'm a lot leaner, but can you just see how much visibly I look like a different person? This is the goal of every compound gaining phase. You don't want to go through a growth phase, come back out of it and kind of, oh yeah, I've grown a little bit of muscle here. I want you to look like a completely fucking different person. I want you to have leveled up every muscle group. I want you to look like you have jumped on gear during that phase. You've taken the body fat back off and you're like, holy fuck, I look ripped. That is the outcome of a compound gaining phase. And the reason why compound gaining phases are working so well compared to what is out there at the moment is because traditional bulking phases rely on a larger surplus and fast weight gain to build muscle quickly. So you can see it here, right? This is what traditional bulking phases do. In 4 months, you gain a load of weight, and sure, right? I'm not going to dispute this fact. You will build more muscle. 4 months, if you're gaining a load of weight really quickly, you will build more muscle. So at this point, you will have more muscle. But this also means gaining fat just as quickly. And the fat isn't the problem here. Gaining fat during a gaining phase is normal. It's going to happen, but it's the speed at which you're gaining it that's the problem. Here's why. After 4 months, you might have built more muscle, but you've also gained more body fat, forcing you to ruin your massing momentum to cut it all off again. Look at this. It's because you gain 14 kilos or you gain a load of weight. You might have built more muscle, but you then have to cut and you have to waste months cutting that body fat back off again to start all over again. And it's ruining your momentum. Your momentum is getting disrupted again and again and again. And you're not having long extended phases where you can actually build a life-changing amount of muscle. Okay, and that's not the only problem. It gets worse. Because the reality is you plan each one of these cutting phases here to last 6 weeks. And you're like, yeah, 6 weeks, I'll get my body weight down in 6 weeks. But they always end up taking 12 to 16 weeks because of how much body fat you gained. And most lifters don't run these cutting phases properly and they actually lose muscle during it. And then you're back at square one, having lost a bit of muscle, dropped all the body fat, starting the cycle all over again. Maybe you've gained a tiny bit of muscle during that phase, but it is not a significant amount. And it gets worse when you realize every single time you gain weight too quickly, your appetite tanks. If you're gaining weight way too quickly, putting weight on, putting a kilo on a week, your appetite will be getting tanked and you won't be able to actually run a longer gaining phase next time because your appetite is dying every single time you do that. And that leads to you cutting even earlier next time than you plan to. So your cutting phases become more and more frequent and your momentum dies even more, right? And your gaining phases, you end up cutting your gaining phases short before you've even had the chance to start collecting any tissue. This is what traditional bulking phases do, and it's what I fell for in the past. Compound gaining phases are very different, okay? If you look just at the graph visually, you will see the difference. The difference is momentum. The difference is we understand that to stack muscle, you need to be depositing pennies every single week into the muscle jar. And if you're just doing that for 4 months and then stopping, and then 4 months and then stopping, then 4 months and stopping, you're not really going to get anywhere. right? But if you do that for an extended period at a really slow pace and you protect this momentum, you will come out the other side having built a life-changing amount of muscle. And I'll show you our results visually so that you can see this. And then at the end of the gaining phase, when your appetite, you've done this for so long, you're sick of gaining, you're ready to go into a cutting phase, you can actually lock in because you are so sick of gaining, and you do it in 6 to 8 weeks. You do it in 6 to 8 weeks. You lock the fuck in, drop all of the body fat, and then go again. So it's a purposefully planned out massing phase that lasts as long as possible using a minimal calorie surplus. We protect your momentum at all costs, and this way, while other people are busy turning back, gaining for 4 months, turning back, gaining for 4 months, turning back, you are sat there compounding little muscle growth every single week, stacking up new muscle tissue while all of your mates are cutting and losing it again, right? And over time, I like to think about it as, your gains are actually compounding. So 1 week, say if you started with 1 kilo of muscle and you gained 10 grams, and then the next week you're gaining 1% of that muscle, it compounds, it gets bigger, right? Because you're protecting this momentum. And the stronger you get during this phase, the better your lifting technique is, the better you progress your lifts, the better that momentum will become, because you're not disrupting it with cutting phases every 8 weeks. It gets better the longer you stay in it. And meaning as soon as we do turn around into a revealing phase at the end of this compound gaining phase, you look like a whole new person to the guy who went in, and you literally cut down and look unrecognizable. That is the goal of every single compound gaining phase. So the old way, overeating and tanking your appetite within months, constantly jumping from phase to phase without building any momentum, getting fat too quickly and having your abs disappear within 4 weeks. We all know what that feels like, and it feels like shit. It's not the right way of doing things. Cutting every 4 to 6 months to reveal the gains that you haven't made yet, and opting for a larger surplus to build more muscle in the next 2 months, and overall just a short-term mindset and needing to see your gains right now this second. The new way, compound gaining phases, eating in a minimal surplus and protecting your appetite for as long as possible. Secondly, delaying gratification and sticking to your gaining phases for over 10 months, like 10 months minimum. Minimizing body fat gain for as long as possible, protecting your massing momentum and giving yourself the longest runway possible, opting for a smaller surplus to build more muscle over the next 3 years instead of the next 2 months, and a long-term mindset switch. And trust that growth is happening beneath the surface here, okay? That is what compound gaining phases do, and you can see the results visually for yourself here, okay? So the outcome is you build more muscle in 1 compound gaining phase than you would in 3 bulks. You will. You get bigger while getting leaner for the first 2 to 4 months as well. Because your training is dialed in, because you're applying stretch loaded training, you will actually get leaner for the first 2 to 4 months before you actually put on any body fat, because you're building muscle so quickly. That is what happens. You won't be tanking your appetite and having to force feed. You build discipline by having to delay the gratification and deciding when your cutting phase is in 10, 12 months time and delaying your gratification until that point. You build discipline by doing that. And when you do cut back down, you look like a completely new fucking person, okay? So Craig, you can see here, look at the difference in his quads. That was 2 compound gaining phases, just 2. Most people would have done 6 bulking phases in that time. That's just 2. And look at the difference in his chest, his delts, his arms, his quads. Look at the difference. Like, it doesn't look like the same guy. Jordan, that's 1 compound gaining phase. 1. Imagine going into it looking like this and coming out of it looking like this. That's what compound gaining phases do. Can you imagine that? You will go into it looking like this and then never look like that again, right? Gitter went into a compound gaining phase here, okay? Gained 10 kilos, really nice and slowly. Cut down, unrecognizable. His arms, he looks like a fucking T-Rex, but he never knew that this physique was underneath. But because he was patient here, he built all of this muscle underneath and then revealed it in 8 weeks. That is how compound gaining phases work, okay? And then finally, this testimonial from Rob. I just want to say thank you again, mate. I've seen more gains in the last couple of weeks than anything. It's definitely noticeable for myself, if you get me. So you can actually visually see yourself getting bigger in compound gaining phases. That's just how these work. The next step within the compound gaining blueprint is the stimulus first approach. So this is an approach that we have towards your training as well. Once we've applied stretch loaded training onto your program, we then get you to take a stimulus first approach. So we do this to get more growth from every set you do by prioritizing stimulus over sets or load or volume over everything. It comes first. The stimulus you're delivering to your muscle to make it grow, that's our main priority. And that's where we put all of our focus. And what this does is it maximizes the return on every second you spend in the gym. It expands your total workload, and it leaves you training with complete clarity, knowing that every set you're doing in the gym is building muscle, not just burning your time, okay? So the problem is most coaches, as I've mentioned throughout here, is they get you to prioritize progressive overload with weight or reps first above everything else. They get you to just lift heavier, do more, and they get you to do that first before they actually consider the stimulus you're delivering to that target muscle. This leads to your logbook going up and everything looking like it's going well, looking like you're doing everything you need to build muscle, but not always more muscle actually being built. You end up taking weight or rep progressions that make you sacrifice stimulus. So it's like, oh, I'm benching 90 this week. I had to progressively overload. I need to go to 100. You go to 100. And even though the logbook is going up, right, you end up getting that weight up by getting other muscle groups involved. And you actually sacrifice stimulus without realizing it, okay? So yeah, you end up sacrificing stimulus for that muscle group, and you end up getting, let's say, your triceps involved without even trying, because you're chasing progression, not chasing stimulus. This often leads to you taking form resets and lowering the weight. So every 8 weeks or so, you're like, fuck, I'm gonna have to reset this exercise and then start progressing again from here. And you're just resetting all the time. You're never actually able to build momentum. And it feels like you're pushing the weight up, but the muscle group isn't really responding, right? It's still not feeling right, even after doing these form resets, and you're still not hitting the target muscle like you want to. And the reality, what this is doing is it's an even bigger problem, because over the long term, your growth again will slow down, you will plateau, and you will have nowhere else to go except adding more shoddy volume. More volume, more sets, more load, more reps, because you're scraping for stimulus on the last 2 reps of every set. But it still won't feel right for the target muscle and hit it like you want it to. And the reality is, it becomes an even bigger problem over the long term, where your growth will slow down, you will plateau, you're going to have nowhere else to go except from, again, adding more shoddy volume, more sets, more load, more reps on that hamster wheel again, because you're scraping for stimulus in the last 2 reps of every set you do, rather than prioritizing stimulus first. Okay, you'll start thinking that it's your split that's the problem. Maybe I need to add in an extra day, do an extra more sets for this muscle group. Maybe I need to switch things around. Maybe it's the rep ranges that are a problem, or something to do with your programming, right? You start thinking that it's something to do with the what that you're doing, not how you're doing it. And I'll explain that in a second, okay? So the difference here in between how we program versus other coaches is they'll tell you to adjust exercises to move the most weight. Well done, mate. You've lifted an extra 10 kilos on the leg press this week. Great work. Well done, mate. You've got another, added another 10 kilos to your bench press. That's going to lead to more muscle growth. Not always. They'll tell you to adjust exercises to move the most weight. We show you how to adjust exercises to build the most muscle. That's the biggest difference here, okay? Secondly, they focus on what to do in the gym. You're going to do this split. You're going to have these exercises. You're going to do this in this order. We focus on how you're actually doing it, because that is what matters for growth. Right, how you're actually doing every rep. This is just another difference in between a numbers first approach and a stimulus first approach. So with a numbers first approach, you're hunting numbers. They're hunting numbers to stroke their ego, right? To go, yes, I've added another 10 kilos, another 20, another 30. How much muscle growth is that actually resulting in? That's the question that I'd ask, okay? You're chasing numbers in the name of progressive overload. And these things are important, but just not first. And I'll explain that in a second, okay? With a numbers first approach, you're aiming to move as much weight as possible, because that's the metric that you're basing your progress off. You end up resetting your form every 6 weeks because you've lost connection with the target muscle, and you need to reset, ruin the momentum, get back with a weight that's less than what you were using previously, and now you're not really sure whether to just jump back to that weight or not. Like, it leaves you just constantly resetting. And you also let your form go to shit to get the final 3 reps of a set. This is some of the symptoms of having a numbers first approach. Stimulus first approach, we hunt stimulus to grow our physique rather than hunting numbers to stroke our ego. We chase growth using a progressive stimulus. Instead of just blind progressive overload, we chase a progressive stimulus, okay? We make exercises as hard as possible for the target muscle, and that doesn't always mean that you're going to be lifting as much weight as you possibly could be. Almost never, actually. And then we're going to take a stimulus first approach from the get-go, and then ramp your numbers up. not the other way around. Okay, so with the numbers first approach, you're ramping your numbers up and then hoping that the stimulus follows, hoping that your muscles grow from that. We take a stimulus first approach to your training, get everything ironed out straight away, and then ramp your numbers up. And instead of letting our form go to shit to get the final 3 reps of a set, we'll go into controlled partials to squeeze every bit of stimulus we can out of a set. These are some of the differences, and the outcome are ridiculous. You will grow more muscle with less sets and sometimes even less load. Not always, but sometimes. You'll have complete confidence that every rep you're doing is building the muscle that you want. You'll grow so quickly you get accused of being on gear, which you can see here. Target muscles get annihilated after every set, and the pumps will be fucking ridiculous. I'll just show you some of the, I'm not going to show you the pumps, but I'm going to show you the testimonials in a second. But you can see here, Rob, I just can't explain what happened to Rob's physique. We put stimulus first within his training. His biceps blew up. I think this was like 10 months as well. His lats grew ridiculously. His chest grew ridiculously. So many amazing things happened. This is Jacob after 2 compound gaining phases. Look at his arm. His arm grew another arm. His chest came out of nowhere. This is someone else as well. I swear I feel like I'm building a whole new chest with that amount of damage. Come down to see my fam before I go to work. Dad has asked if I'm on steroids. This is the kind of speed that you're going to be growing at when you put stimulus first in your training. You can see here some of the testimonials as well from some of my clients. Pump is really hitting today. Fuck me, arm looks photoshopped. Training's flying. Squats this week felt unreal. I feel like everything's slowly coming together too. Hard to explain that one, but I feel like my whole physique is just leveling up. Whole physique. Imagine feeling like every single muscle group on your physique is growing on a weekly basis and you can see it. My chest looks like I've got into a fight with a cat. Love seeing stretch marks. This was Gitter while he was in a cutting phase. So he was cutting and seeing stretch marks because his chest was growing that quickly. Upper today was ridiculous. Just everything else just felt crazy good too. Great pump. Biceps really coming along. Chest burn on dumbbell flies. Gone from an exercise I hated to one I now love because I can really feel the muscle engagement. Mind-to-muscle connection so strong. Compliments again from a mate here, saying that his chest and shoulders look bigger. I swear you photoshopped my head onto somebody else there. That's mad, mate. Generally didn't realise how much progress was made. It's just awesome to see. This is the kind of speed of results that you see when you take a stimulus first approach rather than a numbers first. And finally, we have rapid revealing phases. So in a rapid revealing phase, you will drop 10% body fat in a rapid fat loss phase where you lock in for 6 to 10 weeks and reveal your gains. We agree up front that it will suck, and we won't put you in one until you agree that it's going to suck. But that's the point. You'll see weekly visual changes. You're going to ramp up your hunger for the next compound gaining phase and come out the other side lean, focused, and primed to grow. That is the purpose of these phases. If we are going to get you shredded for a competition or a photo shoot, we are not going to take this approach. This is for growing the most muscle, okay? So the reason why we brought these phases in is because there's a problem. Again, most coaches get you to take shorter fat loss phases where you're just trying to get body fat off to go back into growing slow and steady. There's this obsession with sustainable fat loss. There's this obsession with making sure you're not getting too hungry, making sure everything's okay, making sure you're not eating too little calories, and making sure you're not really under eating. And what it does, it's a huge problem with what it does. But there's this big obsession with just making sure that, we've got your hunger under control and the fat loss is sustainable and you're all okay. That's what people are making sure of right now. And there's a big obsession with this because it's like fast fat loss is taboo right now. But this is a huge problem because it means you're extending cutting phases longer than they need to be and keeping your hunger at bay when you actually want to be ramping it the fuck up so that you can reach your calorie targets when you go into your next gaining phase. If you never ramp your hunger up, you don't have the appetite to actually have a sustained growing phase, and it leads to people cutting too soon in their next gaining phase, right? But the bigger problem here isn't just that you're taking, more months to go into a cutting phase and get that body fat off. It's that the longer you spend away from gaining, the more momentum you are losing. And the more you are going into a catabolic state and losing that momentum for building muscle, right? If this is meant to be a short fat loss phase where you're taking body fat off quickly, you're wasting precious weeks that should be spent maximizing your growth. You often have weeks during these phases where your body weight just maintains, doesn't really go anywhere. And you say it's water weight. Your coach is like, yeah, it's water weight. Yeah, that's normal. No, it's fucking not. You've just wasted another week maintaining your body weight when you should have either been dropping body fat quickly so you can get back to gaining or just gaining. You are spending week after week after week in this lull of a cutting phase, not hitting something like directly and you're losing potential growth by spending time there. Okay, realistically, it's a week wasted that you should have spent growing, or a week that you should have spent losing more body fat. And these phases, these extended cutting phases that are meant to be 6 to 8 week cutting phases that turn into 4-month phases with a photo shoot at the end of them, are the biggest energy and momentum killers. They rob you of gains in the long run. Okay, and the reason why these phases have been so popularized is because there's this huge motion of balance at the moment. This huge motion of fat loss should be easy, fat loss should be sustainable, fat loss should be manageable, your hunger shouldn't get too high, it should be, you should have a balanced approach to everything. Fuck that. We say you grow when you're challenged, right? You grow when you are in a phase that is unsustainable. You grow when we say, you're going to be hungry, it's going to hurt, you're going to have to put up with it for 6 to 8 weeks, but then we can get back to the important thing, which is growing, right? We say you grow when you're challenged. They say it's all about balance. Their mini cuts turn into 16-week painful slogs with underwhelming results. We tell you to lock the fuck in for 6 to 8 weeks and accept the pain, because in the long run, this is less painful, okay? They fight to keep your hunger at bay during this cutting phase. Have more food volume, drink more water, really do everything to keep your food higher, maybe have some more calories today. We tell you to ramp your hunger up on fucking purpose, because we know that hunger is what's going to fuel your next gaining phase. Okay, we're not scared of your hunger ramping up. We're not children that are just based on their emotions have to eat if they feel a little bit of hunger. We know that you can manage that, and we want you to ramp it up on purpose. So regular fast fat loss phases, you plan 8-week cutting phases, but you end up cutting for 4 months. You waste weeks with the scale not moving and blame it on water weight fluctuations. You focus on keeping your hunger at bay at all times, under control. You're obsessed with balance. You make sure your fat loss is super sustainable. Rapid revealing phases are different. We lock the fuck in for 6 to 10 weeks, accept the pain, and drop 10% body fat. You will visually see your abs getting leaner on a weekly basis in these phases. They will hurt, but you will know that it's a hurt that is leading to the result that you want. Not, I don't even know if this is working. You will see it's fucking working, okay? We take full ownership over our progress and control our inputs. We don't blame it on, the scale is, I had a few social events, and fuck that. You lock in. You do it for 6 to 8 weeks, it's painful, you get back to growing. It's simple, okay? We ramp hunger up on purpose to reignite your appetite to actually grow in your next gaining phase, and we thrive off the focus of an unsustainable period. We care more about rapid fat loss than making sure it's super sustainable. We care more about rapid fat loss so that you can get back to growing, because that's the main goal here, growing, right? And the longer you spend in your cut fucking around, the more time you're taking away from growing. So the outcome here, rapid fat loss, seeing the scale and visuals change on a daily basis sometimes. On a weekly basis, you'll see yourself getting leaner. On a daily basis, you will see like little changes. Your body weight will be going down almost every single day, and you will reveal all of the gains that you've made without dropping any muscle mass in these phases as well. It's fast fat loss, but that doesn't mean that you're just dropping muscle mass as well. We do everything to maintain muscle mass, and I actually think a shorter, faster cutting phase where you're absolutely on it with your recovery, with your nutrition, will preserve your muscle mass better than a long slog when you're not doing those things and you're not as focused, right? You can see here Craig, who went from peak bulk to this shape fast. Edwan, this shape to this shape, fast. Look at the abs. Look at the abs coming out of nowhere, right? Do you see this? Louis, there you go, 8 weeks that was. Can you see the difference here? Owen, I just took the best picture of my life. When you're in a fast fat loss phase, it hurts, but this is the benefits that you get to reap. It's not always fun, it's hard, and that's a good thing. This is what rapid revealing phases do, okay? And that altogether is the compound gains blueprint. So we set you up with stretch loaded training to deliver new levels of tension to your muscle. We then take you into a compound gaining phase, super slow, purposefully planned out massing phase where you gain for an extended period so that you come out looking like a completely new guy as to how you went in. We take a stimulus first approach to your training. We increase your training intensity and we eliminate junk volume to grow from every rep you're doing. Then we go through a rapid revealing phase, rip off 10% body fat quickly, reveal the gains you've made, and guess what? Then you go back through the cycle again. We apply stretch loaded training at the start of your mesocycle. We take you into a compound gaining phase and you repeat again and again until you build as much muscle as you want and you achieve your dream physique, right? And that is the compound gains blueprint. That's what we've done with over 100 guys, and that's how we've built 300 kilos of muscle. Now, I want you to imagine knowing that you are compounding new muscle tissue every single week, because that is what the compound gains blueprint does. It gives you clarity the inputs you're putting in are resulting in new muscle tissue being added to your physique under the surface every single week. Okay, imagine gaining 10 kilos of lean mass in one gaining phase that makes you jacked forever. One. Not, oh, we're gonna have to go through 4 cycles of bulking and cutting to get here. Fuck that. One gaining phase. You are one gaining phase away from building a shit ton of muscle and transforming how you look and feel forever. You're one gaining phase away from building enough muscle to compete as a bodybuilder. You are one compound gaining phase away from getting super jacked and loving how you look for the rest of your life. You're one gaining phase away from all of your mates going, how the fuck are you growing that quickly? I want that. You're one gaining phase away from this, but it has to be a compound gaining phase that is executed on properly, okay? Imagine knowing that you're training in a way that maximizes your growth and literally seeing yourself get bigger in the changing room every single week. You're finishing a session, walking over to the changing room, looking in the mirror, and you can see that new bicep vein. You can see that new bit of muscle. You can literally grow that quickly when you take a stimulus-first approach and you use stretch-loaded training in a compound gaining phase. You tie these 3 together, you will grow quicker than you ever have before. And that's it, guys. If you want to grow your next 10 kilos of lean mass using the compound gains blueprint that I just ran you through, then I'll send you over all of the details if you DM me the word blueprint on Instagram. This will let me know that you've watched this video, and I'll send you all of the details about the 16-week program, the phases we go through, how it works, the access you'll get. All of that will be covered, and I'm excited to work with you. So go and message me the word blueprint over on Instagram, and you'll get all the details from there. Thanks for watching.